Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's joint webinar between TEBIS and Zoller on Are You Using the Right Technology Partner? It's my pleasure to be your host, moderator for today's webinar. My name is Michael Thiessen. I'm the Marketing and Video Production Specialist at Zoller Inc. And alongside me today, I have two experts, one from Zoller and one from TEBIS. That's Cedric Hasenfratz, who's the National Sales Manager for TMS Tool Management Solutions at Zoller Inc., and Michael Thiessen, the Sales Manager at TEBIS America Inc. They are going to talk about the subject of your technology partners and answer the big question for you. Are you using the right technology partner? And we're going to take a look a little bit at what that means and get into the details of the partnership between Zoller and TEBIS. So as we move on a little bit here, let's first talk about the TEBIS and Zoller partnership. What is this partnership and why is it beneficial? Both companies, TEBIS and Zoller, are focused on being a long-term technology partner and furthering technology through innovative solutions, which increase the safety and efficiency of the NC machines. So both companies have really done a lot of work to focus on being efficient and having innovative solutions. And we see that both from TEBIS with ToolMatch and from Zoller with our TMS tool management solutions. So what you're going to hear later on in this presentation from Cedric and from Michael is the details of how this partnership works and how those two technologies work together to provide that increased efficiency for your production process and the efficiency of the NC machines. So everybody knows that in the current state of the manufacturing industry, you have to do what you can do to maintain a competitive edge. And what that means for most companies is looking at and analyzing what available methods there are and what solutions there are out there to give you that manufacturing edge and make sure that you keep it for the long term. So technologies that we talk about may sometimes be unconventional in their ideas and be maybe hard to wrap your mind around. They may not be easily recognized, but they can provide a tremendous value to your process. When you really look at implementing these new technologies, however, you need to make sure that you have the right partner to help you do that, which raises the big question and the reason we're all here today. Are you using the right technology partner? So before we go a whole lot further, I'd like to first talk about from our end, from both Cedric and myself being at Zoller, a little bit of background information about Zoller as a company, and then I'll pass it over to Michael Thiessen, who will talk about TEBIS before getting into the real meat of the presentation here today. So Zoller Inc. Zoller was started as a company in 1945 in southern Germany in a small town just outside of Stuttgart. The company was a repair shop and is a family-owned company by the Zoller family. They have blossomed over the 75-year history to move away from just repairs and move into tool measuring technology. And as you see here, this is the North American headquarters, which was completed after Zoller Inc. was founded in 1997. We moved into this facility here, North American headquarters in Ann Arbor, Michigan in 2018. So the company has just continued to grow. Like I said, tool presetting and measuring was the primary focus for the early years for Zoller. However, there are a lot more things that Zoller has grown into over the last couple of decades. When you look at, again, tool presetting and measuring, but we also focus a lot on tool inspection and measuring, TMS tool management solutions, and automation. And of course, the focus for today from the Zoller side is going to be on TMS tool management solutions. Now, as you see in the picture there on the left side of the screen, TMS tool management solutions covers both hardware and software. Today, of course, Cedric will be focusing a lot on the software side. However, we do have the cabinets that you see there in the picture, as well as vending machines and other hardware solutions to consider there too. But what is Zoller all about? When we look at all of these different technologies, one of the biggest things that we always bring up, especially with our TMS software solutions, is that everything that you utilize from Zoller is from a single source. And I think this plays really nicely into the topic for today, that you're working from the same database and from a single source, whether it's the solutions that we provide or the information that you're working with. And I think, as you'll see from the TEBIS side and from the Zoller side, that this idea of having a single source is a very important idea moving forward for an efficiency standpoint and for an accuracy standpoint as well. So Michael, I'm going to hand it over to you now for your introduction of TEBIS, and then you can get right into the presentation.
Yeah, thank you, Michael, for the introduction. Welcome also to all the attendees to this very special webinar that we're putting together with our friends over at Zoller. I'm pleased to invite you to this in here. Lots of good information that we're going to be sharing with you. Now, who is TEBIS? What can you expect? Where is TEBIS from? Let me introduce you to TEBIS AG, which is our headquarters over in Martinsried, Germany. It was founded in 1984 by Mr. Bernhard Rindfleisch. He is still our current driving force, our head developer, chief developer, and CEO. This is very unique to TEBIS. We've not been purchased up by any other company, and all of our developments that were going on, you saw exactly in that picture beforehand. Now, what does TEBIS do, and what do we stand for? TEBIS combines all of the software and the processes all together in one, not just for the mold and die manufacturing area, but also for the model, the industrial design, the aerospace, as well as the production machining areas. This is where TEBIS really shows its strength, where we're putting all of the processes in place and helping you as the user and the clients to really get the maximum power out of it. If you need any information, go to this website that we have down below. There's lots of information on there for you to see what TEBIS has in store. All right, well, without any further ado, I'm going to hand it on back to Cedric. He's going to fill you in on all the exciting stuff.
Thank you, Michael. We'll look at here and keeping it all digital. So this is the major topic of today, really showing a nice flowing interface that's really nicely synchronized without having to push any buttons and update our tooling source right over to TEBIS. As usual, we have different packages that we offer. We're going to talk mostly today and cover the bronze level on the Zoller side. And when we open up that slide now, I'll have maybe Michael jump in a little bit too, but you can see here in the first place on the left, you see the tools of the ZOLLER TEBIS database, the complete tool management solution, where everything resides and kind of also will be transferred right over to TEBIS, and not really transferred because that's very special today compared to other interfaces that we have. It's pretty much synchronized. And maybe I'll let Michael quickly talk about this slide real quick too.
See, this is the beauty about Zoller and TEBIS together. This is really a handover between the Zoller TMS system and the TEBIS PDM server. Everything is live that we do. There is no pushing of data that comes across where you just copy it and you're stuck with it. That's the beauty of TEBIS, and the principle is exactly how it lays out. It's a live handover, and because the TMS is so unique, the Zoller TMS, that it's a real pleasure to show you this information. But we're taking this information in. You, as a user of the CAD/CAM system in TEBIS, you have access to the entire tool library that Zoller has. And if your company has thousands of tools, you can only imagine what that data stream looks like when we're transferring every bit within seconds to each other. And then afterwards, of course, I'm going to hand it back with the setup sheet back to Zoller, and then Zoller can create your tool setup sheet that goes to your tool crib. And then this is where all the fun starts out on the CNC machine.
I agree. So the setup sheet comes back, and what we really know with that database now, because TEBIS has such a powerful solution, verifying the tooling, verifying also with a really powerful simulation, that setup sheet now is really proven out, and you have a clean database right there to choose from. Looking at the next slide now, we would like to go more into the actual transfer of the tooling or setup sheets on what we're actually transferring. Again, this is synchronized. We don't need to push buttons, as Michael said. It's a really seamless workflow that all the updates you make within Zoller will be automatically updated right over to TEBIS from our central tool database, which again will be verified once we push the setup sheet back. The data exchange, basically step number 3 here is, it's an automated import, as I mentioned. So all the tool data through Zoller receiving in TEBIS almost pretty much at the same time. You have the real tool data being simulated within TEBIS. So all the tools that you assign to each of the tool paths will be simulated. And afterwards, as we verified everything, that data or the complete setup sheet, the job will be now transferred right over again to Zoller to have a clean, centralized database ready to use. Step one. And we're going to make here a little bit more of a live demonstration. You can see here the Zoller interface with our widgets to the right side. We're going to open up our groups. Here is a drilling. You see the group TEBIS. I picked my first drill here to quickly give you an overview on what this all entails. You see graphics. The contour is right there with the non-cutting portion of the tool and the cutting portion, which is in red. Then we also have the drawing, as you could see here, the 2D drawing. Then we got our characteristics, which we obviously want to read into TEBIS. So you can see nicely here all the different references of the cutting edge, plus the diameters of the tools. The technology data comes with that, so we can really define it by different materials, by different machining types. All the speeds and feeds are part of this. And last but not least, again, your complete parts list of that drill. And we're going to look now in a milling tool. So from here, we have the same exact screen with the same information and description of each tool. Here we can see the characteristics of the face mill. Again, same principle based off the ISO standards. We have all the parameters that we need to be transferred over right to TEBIS and what TEBIS is able to read. And you can see there's different characteristics that we can use for different end mills, which is a very big and beneficial feature within Zoller, that you have not just the one end mill or one end drill. You can really choose the exact one that you need, such as spot drills, deep drills, and so forth. So that said, same here, technology data is part of it. We have 3 different applications, 3 different materials. Might go on different machines too that we apply it to. And I give it over now to step number 2, transferring the basically the data.
So it's very easy, as Cedric already said, really easy with 3 steps. And these now, once he has now done his major portion, because we know the tool management system Zoller is so precise with all the items that are in there. Now what's going to happen is I'm going to change it into the CAM system. I'm going to bring it into TEBIS, and there's also a couple of steps that I'm going to bring up here. One is also the integration of all the required tools into the CAM job that are exactly defined by the TMS at Zoller. I'm bringing all this information into TEBIS. I'm going to quickly look at all those tools and make sure that all the information came across and verify that everything is kosher. And then after that, I'm going to go through and make sure that all the technology data that Cedric just earlier mentioned for all my different materials are also there. And last but not least, as we said already earlier, the last step is I'm going to look at the machine simulation and then go and make sure that all my selected tools are verified. So for that, now let's go and look inside the TEBIS environment, how that TMS is really connecting live. So here we got our part. I'm going to go into my tool and let me explain how this all works. And we said already, this is a live connection to the TMS system. So as I'm looking at these tools, I'm sending bits and data over across. I'm looking again at all of the tooling information, the technology data with all my feeds and speeds, my step overs, my technology data on the materials I'm going to use, my step downs. All of this information is already embedded inside the tool. This is why this is so important to have a good looking and good functioning tool library. It's all about automation, and the very first step to automation really is have a clean and functioning and powerful tool management system and a tool library to house all of these informations. So now what I'm doing here is I'm looking actually at my automation setup. In this particular part here, I've set up everything in a fully automated fashion so that my tools, my variable tools, can automatically go out and select the appropriate tools from the TMS for my operations. Because sometimes I have holes that are just a little bit deeper, than others, and I need to have a longer flute length. Having a variable tool set up and a variable tool selection, I can now select, depending on my tool type and my diameters and my length, what is the appropriate tools. Now, in this particular item here, it's very unique. Even all of my programming efforts are fully standardized and fully automated. Every single item in here, in terms of surface selection, you will not see our experts select any surfaces, because why? The software knows exactly which layer, which object layer he needs to get to in order to calculate the job. This particular job is actually our post-processor verification solution. So we check all of our posts with this tool. So now, again, all of my tools are there, all of my technology parameters there. All that I really need to do is really execute all of this. And the biggest thing besides the automation is the standardization. Standardizing your way across your entire shop floor. Having your tools with all your technology data available. Now it's just as simple as just saying execute all, and you will see now all your check marks are going to get filled in by your tool path. This is live, it's not pre-programmed, it's not anything. So I'm going to hit execute, and you will see these tool paths getting calculated. On the bottom right side, you'll see your progress bar, you see your check marks appear. And now what I'm doing is, which is also very unique, it not only goes through, does all the programming of this particular part, but it also does automatically a tool check to make sure that that particular tool that the TMS has given me is safe for its programming operation. And now the last step, fully automatic, I'm going to go through and simulate every single movement and every single item on this particular job that I'm just doing in my full simulation efforts. So now this particular job is ready and capable to run on the machine completely unattended, completely lights out, and it gives me real characteristics of the machine kinematics outside the machine with real numbers on the machine runtime on this particular machine, because I'm utilizing kinematics and the acceleration parameters and the look ahead on this particular machine. Very unique, very accurate, so you know exactly when this particular machine is going to go through with its programming. And every single motion that this machine does is completely verified. It is the tool changer. When the tool gets exchanged, we're checking the simulation over to the tool laser, and because at the end, we need to recognize this. The tooling that you've purchased from whatever tool supplier that you have is not a cheap amount of money that you're utilizing. It is probably very expensive, these new tools. So keeping these tools as new as possible is very important. That's where the realism comes in place, and making sure that the realistic efforts and the realistic view on this particular tool and all of its motion inside the machine is 100% identical. I'm going to talk a little bit later on about the tooling a little bit more, but I cannot stress more about how important it is to have accurate tool information with all of the feeds and speeds and the parameters embedded already from the beginning. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do actually full automatic documentation for all of my programming efforts, fully automatic. I don't have to touch anything. I put my file name in that I want to call this. Maybe I want to put an additional comment slide to it with an additional picture. This is all doable. This is what my expert is right now doing, is just putting a description in there. You can add a picture to it. And now your team outside by the CNC machine has the exact lineup, the exact programming of your part in a nice list format that he can now follow. And even he can have a viewer outside by the machine to really put the realism to the next level. This is how important this TMS connection to TEBIS is. And this is very unique, and I cannot stress this more. It is a live connection to the TMS. It is not a dump into a directory where now you have to re-post it out from the TMS. It is a direct connection. So now what we're going to do is, after I have all of this done, I'm going to hand it back to Cedric, because there is this step 3 that we're going to be talking about.
Thank you, Michael. I really like this a lot on what you showed us today with a really good verified simulation Looking now at the next step is we want to bring basically our tooling back to Zoller. Everything is verified and we have correct tools. Everything is assigned. The part is done. We have a finished part. We would like to bring everything back now as a complete setup sheet. So let's transfer all the tool data via setup sheet or tool list to the ZOLLER TMS single source database. As we can see right here, for our ZOLLER customers, everything looks familiar. We have here our tooling, and the actual screen you see right in the middle is the same exact screen as you usually see on the presetter. So all those measurements are still part of that too. And the actual DXF graphics right to the right side. So let's see how this actually looks. With the demo piece of it, we have here the finished part view, which we basically want to also bring as a part for our setup sheet and give this a quick section name with the actual, like Michael did, file name to it and confirm that. So we're going to just put here the TMS TEBIS demo part and confirm this and confirm that right over now to our database. So that finished part will be also now taken as a screenshot that we can be having part of it for our ZOLLER TMS setup sheet, our tool setup sheet. So here we go. This is our main page for the setup sheet. We're going to look right here with the live connections, the TMS demo. We have the drawing now that we can pick from our graphic folder. And here's your finished part view that we now confirm and is now part of our setup sheet. Pops up right here on the right-hand side. Let's take a quick look again at the tool data. So again, to the left, we have all the tooling information, which you can look also at the contours and the DXF graphics. They're part of it now. And of course, again, all the measurements that we have from our presetter with the ZNX tolerances and the actual measuring modes. Technology data is part of it, of the setup sheet that we have. We now can save this. Everything looks good. And last but not least, let's take a look on how this actually looks on paper. So either can have it as a viewer license and just view it that way, or simply just make a print out as you can see it now with the finished part view, a graphic attached. Also, we have the parts list of each of the components and what it entails on how this tool is actually assembled from. Again, this is all now verified through the TEBIS, and we have a clean single source database that we can choose from. Tool by tool, all the information is there, even some steps that we took from the presetters, all the measurements in it. And as for every tool, the whole parts list is part of it. That kind of completes here the step with the setup sheet, and we're going to head over now to the benefits, which me and Michael will share with you together on really what's important and why are we interfacing or basically synchronizing our databases, and what's your advantage. First one for the ZOLLER side is it really gives you a lot of benefits to have that central tool database, all the technology information. You can look at the complete tool measuring of the ZOLLER TMS with your presetters. You can also interface with other CAM systems. So if you have certain tools that you might use with an additional CAM interface, you can just go right back and bring it in from ZOLLER. What about the TEBIS? I'll let Michael answer that question right here.
Well, on the TEBIS side, nothing, of course, inside TEBIS without the TMS needs to be a big part of it. But the big thing that I said earlier already a couple of times, and you probably are sick and tired of me saying this, it is a live system. No ifs, buts, and thens over this. It is live. It is permanent adjustment in the background. It is unmatched by any other CAD/CAM provider that is out there, and it's continuous. But it goes much more because the benefits, it's all about the reliability. Having a TEBIS PDM system in the background that is buffering the data in case that the ZOLLER TMS will become unavailable due to some outages or whatever that is, you never run into a situation where you don't have the tool available because we're doing this buffering on the back end. Now, obviously, on the standardized connection side, TEBIS, we can implement this very smoothly in existing environments at companies, and this is how we can bring across the entire tool assembly from Zoller TMS system that is really managing all of your tools, all of your inserts. And I believe, Cedric, even if you're running out of inserts, the TMS can alert you that you don't have this particular tool available. So I don't even program with it. Hopefully I'm stating this thing correctly then.
100% too.
Perfect. So from that side now, I'm going to take a detour quickly. I'm going to say, well, but there's much more than just looking at the TMS between Zoller and TEBIS, because we said everything is at the starting point with the tool needs to be there. And if it's not there, then there's a problem. So what I'm going to say here is we have the Zoller TMS system here. Let's look at one more item that's completely digital, which is, of course, your part. It is your part that you manufacture. It's a digital item. It is the job that you're working on. It is your initial digital twin. This is where it's all started. It's your workpiece and your part, completely designed in your CAD/CAM system or your CAD system, and we're bringing it inside TEBIS. But that's not the only item that we're dealing with. Of course, we talked the entire time already about tooling. Tooling is an important aspect of keeping it all digital. Without digital and a virtual tool crib, as we call it, there's nothing that is more important than having the exact replica of what you're dealing with in a CAD/CAM environment, virtual as well as in the realism. So let's look at just some different examples of tooling that you have. Of course, you have regular drilling tools and milling tools, your simple milling cutter, your body. Then you have your component-based milling with different types of holders and extensions. Maybe you even have turning tools available with hobbing tools and live tools as well as turning tools. In your shop, you have thousands of tools probably embedded. Now you need to have all of these things represented inside your CAD/CAM system, because if you're not using the real thing, you're running into collisions, you're running into damaging your machine or your part, and even more so, you're not being efficient and you're not making money. So if we now look at these imports now, how can I get this realistic tool inside the CAD/CAM system? Of course, we have Zoller here. They have their presetters. They can scan the tooling and the holders and bring it right into the TMS, or we can connect with different kind of manufacturers. If that's Moldini, if that's Pocom or Aura or other Seiko tooling providers, they have on their website their formats that I can bring this in. Or I can also utilize the Tools United portal and have a direct TEBIS export, so I can bring this tooling directly into the TEBIS environment. Again, talking about realism, talking about accuracy, talking about efficiency in programming. So having this tool information here is super important. From there, I'm going to go to the virtual machines. You have probably a dozen machines sitting out there. How am I going to make sure that nothing is going to happen on this machine with the tooling that Zoller has provided to me? It is almost impossible nowadays, especially during this pandemic. It was realistic to us that programming without a virtual machine, programming without a virtual item in your computer is almost impossible. Some of you guys are still stuck at home and programming from at home without a simulation equipment such as TEBIS that simulates every single movement. It's almost impossible to keep your machine safe. What do we do in the past? In the past, we just utilized what? Your regular head. That was the technology of yesterday. Just utilizing the head. Simple head geometry. Then we moved on to maybe very simplified 3 or 5 axis machine models. From there on, I'm going to go into more complex kinematic models with 5, 6, 8 axis gun drill items. Just to show you a little bit on the different types of machines that we're running into on a day-to-day basis and how complex these things can be, let me show you just a few of those. I mean, these can be your simplistic 5-axis machine or your most in-depth 5-axis machines for aerospace, for mold and die use, but it could also be your regular NTX machines, your lathe, your turn mills, your mill turns. You need to have representation for all of your types of machines that you have out there. If it is a gun drill or a deep hole drill with all the different tools, but now also the latest and greatest thing is utilizing robots for all of your milling operations. All of those things, a CAD/CAM system such as TEBIS in connection also with the TMS and Zoller is such a unique combination. Having every single item in a realistic fashion is definitely key. Well, let's move on from the different types of machines, and there's more to it. From the machines now, there's one last item that we're utilizing in these machines, and that's your clamping devices. Having a clamping library available with all of your different types of clamping devices that you use, if that's a vise or your FCS equipment or other types of work holding fixtures, it's important. Why? Because you can run into this inside your machine. You can again damage your tooling, damage the machine, and these are one of the things that are very important to us. How are you going to get this all now to the machine is always the million-dollar question. What is TEBIS doing that is so different from all the other systems that are out there? Well, for that, I need to look at some of the other systems and what they're doing. So there's the idea of machine independent NC programming. Then I'm posting, I'm bringing it into a simulation equipment, and if I have any kind of problems, I'm looping back around to my CAD/CAM system, redoing it again, checking it through again, and then once finally I'm happy with what's going on, I'm posting it out and sending it to the machine. This is where you would hear the big buzzer sound and the red X would come up and say, this is not the right way of doing it, because it's not efficient. It's not in the best way of the way how should be programming. Let me show you what TEBIS does in order to keep your machine safe, and that's the TEBIS philosophy. And that is very simplistic. It is machine dependent NC programming. I'm utilizing my machine right from the beginning on, and with that, I'm utilizing not just the machine, but my digital twins, my libraries for my machines, for my devices, for my vices, for my programming with all of my different items that I'm utilizing. I'm cramming them into my system, the exact tooling from the TMS, the exact vices, the exact holding equipment, and then from there, after I'm done the programming, I'm post-processing directly and then sending it to my machine. Very simplistic, very straightforward, and very exact. But this is when a lot of the naysayers come, well, but what if, well, you can verify the G code. Well, let me explain this to you. If you accept and we virtually check every single machine, and we check the post-processor, and you've seen this part now earlier, we check every single machine and every post-processor with that part for every single function that you could run into. Once this is accepted, once we have verified that this is correct, then we're moving on to the next step and post-processing this job and sending it to the machine. And this is how we keep your machine safe. And this is why this is so important. The tooling, the holding equipment, the machines, all of these things need to work together in unison, because then we're keeping it all digital. There's one item that we've left out in today's webinar, and this is the last point I'm going to bring up, and I'm going to hand it on back to my friends over at Zoller. And this is the Zoller tool match. We've not talked about this enough. It's very unique to Zoller and to TEBIS. Again, unmatched, and this is where our development at TEBIS and Zoller is so unique, because we come up with these unique ideas. What is tool match? Tool match is the availability to keep your machines collision-free. It increases the unmanned run times. It simplifies and streamlines your entire tool flow, and it gets the realistic environment and the theoretical environment of your CAD/CAM system in sync, and making sure that all of your programming and your processing machine gets done quicker. It doesn't mean that your operators are sleeping, as you see the guy there, but it is collision-free and it works. For this, unfortunately, we don't have enough time today to go over this, so I'm going to say to my friends at Zoller, we're going to put on another show and show really the audience of how important this particular tool match system is between Zoller and TEBIS, and I'm going to say stay tuned. until you hear the next date that we're going to be coming up. That's going to be coming to your email systems here hopefully soon, so you can also see what's going on. With that said, I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to hand it on back to my friends over at Zoller, so we can maybe go over on a couple of additional items there.
All right, well, Michael, thank you so much. And Cedric, thank you for your presentation as well. As we refocus back here on the big question for today, are you using the right technology partner? And you look here at the combination of Zoller TMS Tool Management Solution System with virtual simulation and TEBIS tool match. I think we've answered what it means to use the right technology partner and how beneficial that can be when you really have a symbiotic relationship between the technologies and the partners that you're working with. You really do start to see the incredible power that this can offer you for your process. So now we want to really, again, thank you both, Michael and Cedric, for your presentations, and take this moment of time to address any questions that we've received from any of our viewers today. So please do look for the questions icon and submit those questions to us so that we have, our experts here from TEBIS and Zoller. Let's get these questions addressed.